So we're starting today a series of a few talks, maybe 6, 7 talks on the Mass. I think when we get to heaven, there cannot be sorrows in heaven, but I still think we'll have some regret without the regret being painful, is we did not appreciate God's gifts enough, Our Lady and the Mass. And, we cannot be sad. We'll say, I made it. That's great. I'm in heaven. Fine. But once we look back and once we see the power of Our Lady and the treasure of the Mass, we will have a kind of a heavenly regret. I say, oh, I should have loved it more. I should have entered into the mystery more. So the purpose of these little talk is to kindle your fire, the fire of your love for the Mass, to understand it better, as many details as possible, different aspects. The Mass is a diamond. The Mass is an extraordinary work of art. If you go to Dublin, you've been to Dublin, go to Dublin. Go to the National Museum in Dublin and go and visit these gold treasures of we're talking about the 600s, 700s, 800s, the Ardagh chalice of the 800. It's a chalice which it's priceless. I mean, like the Book of Kells, if you know a bit of art. But they were working with gold the size of a hair. And they were doing all this mesh on the chalice. And you just look at it and say, how did these uneducated people do these things? You know, they didn't have computers and laser beams. And they did that. They were smart. And they loved. These treasures, the greatest treasures, are all related to the Mass. The Mass there's a beautiful conference by Dr. It was the Angelus Conference in the U.S. The Mass as the source of Christian civilization in the art, in music, sculpture, painting, even plays, because the front of cathedrals were the first theaters, were the front of cathedrals. Christmas plays, passion plays, all these plays. People wanted to be entertained, and all the entertainment took place around the church, because that's the heart of a village. The village is built around the church. A church is what? Is the structure around the altar. That's the church. It's for the Mass. And so there's many things to talk about the Mass. Today we will start with a little bit of the history of the Mass, to give you some notions that you will realize the missal you have in your bags, in your purse, that you hold. The missal is priceless. What's in that missal is priceless. That's our Mass. We will look at, perhaps next time, maybe in December, I will alternate the talks. Some months we might have 3 talks, if you don't mind. And so one on the Mass, one on the history of Canada, one on the Mass, history of Canada. So it will not always be like the second and fourth Sunday. It will be one after the other whenever I can come. Like I think in December we'll have 1 talk, because I'm away a couple of Sundays. But I won't be traveling much after my next trip. But so the Mass, we'll see at the Mass all from the angle of symbolism. Every detail of the Mass, how much we incline our head, how much we bow, what we do with our hands, At what word does the priest join his hands? All this has reason, has a meaning. So we will look at the history of the Mass, the symbolism of the Mass, the mystical aspects of the Mass. There's great books, a French Monsignor de Ségur. He calls it the Sacred Mysteries, written back in the 1860s. And he explains the candles, he explains the Mass and the communion of saints, the Mass and the angels, the Mass and heaven, all these things. It's very, very beautiful. So there's lots to say about different parts of the Mass, the prayers, the Mass and the Passion. Les Saints Mystères, the Holy Mysteries. It does not exist in English. Les Saints Mystères. I have it in PDF if anybody's interested, in French. Walang Tagalog, so. The Mass and the Passion. Did we see here the little video clip, the Mass and the Passion? Well, we'll see it again. It's worth seeing it again. And how to go through the Mass, thinking of the Passion. It's extraordinary. And it changes your whole insight, your whole following the Mass. And as we go along, and we study then the Mass part by part, we will see, once we understand that better, that treasure, you will see the sacrilege. You'll see the sacrilege or the tragedy of the new Mass. Because once you realize that every facet of that diamond, has something carved on it, like the Arda chalice, which is absolutely beautiful. Or if you go to Loreto, anybody's been to Loreto? Loreto. The little house of Our Lady in Loreto. We give you a talk next year. The talk on Loreto. Well, it's enshrined into an absolutely beautiful work of art by Bramante. It's marble carving all over. I mean, every square inch is carved. And you just look at this, the life of Our Lady, of our Lord, the Old Testament, the prophets, the Bible stories, everything to do with Our Lady. It's just so beautiful. So the Mass is like this. And so once you understand the different parts of the Mass, or understand better, you will understand the tragedy of having touched all these parts in the new Mass. There's no details, as we all know. And in relation to the Mass, it's very, very true. The enemies of the Church know the Mass better than we do. And we should be ashamed of that. We should be ashamed, because this is our Mass. Our Mass. So let us begin. Today, we'll talk about the formation of the Mass. We will talk also about Quo Primum. I would like to give a talk on Quo Primum of St. Pius V. So the legal aspects of the traditional Mass. And of the new Mass, the illegal aspect of the new Mass. That'll be another talk. So there's lots to talk about. So we need to begin after this little introduction.